And that way, you're free and easy.
Time to get the job done.
And so it just doesn't sit right that we've got no money and yet we're paying for him. So basically, we can't afford to go on holiday, but we're funding somebody else's holiday.
Yeah, I hear you, Julie, and I hear that completely as an objection to Trump's visit. Thank you so much for your call. This is an interesting text from Sarah on 84850. She says, "Evening, Natasha. Although everything about Trump gives me the ick." I love that we're using this language. It's entirely my fault. I was the first person to say it, but it is icky, isn't it? Although everything about Trump gives me the ick, it seems to me that the worst thing for him is to be ignored. So for me, I won't be protesting. I love it, craving attention as he does. And Sarah, I assume that text comes from Scotland. Let's imagine then an alternative reality where Donald Trump arrives in Scotland to nothing, to tumbleweed, to no protests, to relatively few headlines. Would that bother him more? And would that be a victory? I mean, is our aim ultimately
ready to turn right,
inflict hurt upon the man who inflicts so much harm upon the world? What is the end game?
Turn right.
Maybe is a question that's worth interrogating. 03456060973 is the number to call. You're listening to Natasha Devon and the time is 6:45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. It was the moment the music stopped at a Taylor Swift dance class and 3 little girls were to lose their lives.
A man has been arrested following reports of a stabbing attack in Southport.
Now, chillingly, with tensions running high, could we be looking at a return of last summer's lawlessness? For the politicians, is it again just words and warnings?
Southport must be a line in the sand.
Join me, Nick Ferrari, next week as we mark the Southport killings 1 year on. Nick Ferrari at breakfast, back Monday morning from 7. Listen on your radio, on Global Player and the new LBC app.
At the roundabout,
stunning retirement apartments to buy or rent. Search McCarthy Stone or call 0800 153 3055.
Exit now.
Today's the day. The day that Jim feels he can't carry on. Unable to see beyond his problems. His pain unbearable. So thankfully today,
at the
he reached out to us.
Take the 3rd exit.
Samaritans. And that could save Jim's life. Leave a gift in your will to Samaritans and support people who are struggling to carry on. Help us save lives today, tomorrow, always. To find out how, search Samaritans' Wills.
The people of Britain love their ice baths. They've bought loads of them. With the Barclaycard Platinum, they could also save with 0% interest for up to 24 months on purchases, which is a nice, warm feeling. What you buy is your business. Helping you pay less interest is ours. Subject to financial status, T's and C's and exclusions apply. Check if you're eligible at barclaycard.co.uk. Representative example, 24.9% APR representative variable and 24.9% purchase rate per annum based on a £1,200 credit limit.
You know that guy I've been seeing? Yeah. Turns out my sister's been seeing him too.
Oh, really?
And I heard
keep right, and then exit right.
And Dave, your brother. Yep.
Specsavers opticians and audiologists own and run their stores, so your care is their business, which can make them rather popular.
I've got something to tell you. I've got half an hour with him this afternoon.
Specsavers, your care is our business. Book an appointment today.
Caution. Please mind
minute EasyJet flights. Get it while it's hot. From just £30 one way kind of hot. And there's still lots of hot deals to be had this summer. Book now at easyjet.com. Get out there. Selected flights July to September. Limited availability. T's and C's apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Natasha Devon.
6:48. So 2 very strongly contrasting text messages have come in during the break there. This from Timothy on 84850 saying, Natasha, you are talking absolute rubbish. I love you too, Timothy. The reason we are paying is because British citizens are choosing to go out and protest. I cannot believe you are stating that the American president should pay for British people to supervise British citizens that clearly cannot be trusted to behave themselves. Grow up and stop living in a fantasy land. Okay, Timothy. And then Valerie, who is from Washington, D.C., has said, good afternoon, Natasha. As a Washington, D.C. taxpayer, I object strongly to wasting $10 million for the Mango Mussolini to go on a personal visit anywhere. He has enough money to pay his own way. That is the waste, fraud and abuse he claims exists in the federal government. Think of all the federal workers he has now put out of work. Ignore the pathological racist liar. That's one of his citizens describing him thusly. So I say they're two conflicting opinions. You've got a US person very unhappy that they're paying for Trump to go on what they perceive to be a jolly. And then you've got somebody saying, well, Trump shouldn't be expected to pay for the cost of policing the protests when he gets there, because that is British people's fault.
Please mind
I wonder
speed.
what we make of that. Stephen has called from Bournemouth. What would you like to say?
Hi. First and foremost, I think, despite what we might think of Trump as a person, and I don't particularly like the guy myself, but he's the elected president of the most powerful country in the world, which the office of the president, it affords him respect in that sense, just because of the job title. As for his presence here and the protests, we don't ask for other organisations around the world to pay if British citizens are protesting either in favour or against, what other things that are going on in the world. So why do we expect this to be different because it's Trump?
That's a really good point.
Please mind speed.
It's the unexpected nature of the visits that I think people are feeling aggrieved about, because it feels like he's coming here to escape the controversy and the scandal in his own country. And then that has ultimately, whether you're a Scottish person out there protesting today or not, that has ultimately cost you money if you are a taxpayer. So you can understand why people would feel a certain way about that.
Please mind the speed.
I do understand it, but at the same time, the protests regarding Gaza cost businesses all over London, especially central London, they cost them an absolute fortune. But nobody is suggesting someone else should pay for that. The Metropolitan Police obviously have to police those protests. I'm not sure what the difference is.
I hear you. I think you're making a good point. If you were a US taxpayer, would you feel differently?
I wouldn't want to be paying for my president to go on a holiday abroad. I think in fairness, I think you're sort of comparing apples and oranges though, because this is British people who are protesting against his presence in Britain.
Please watch the speed.
Americans who have an issue with paying for his security and travel and all of that kind of stuff, I think that's a completely different situation.
Okay, yeah, and I completely see your point, Stephen. Thank you so much for your call. Eve has called from Brixton.
Please
what would you
mind
like
speed.
to say?
Hi, Natasha. Look, this whole thing with Trump coming over, look, the man's a narcissist. He's got fans in this country, and they would love to see him over. They wish he was his president, or they wish he was their president. I think he's basically, as you said, I think he's coming over here to escape the whole Epstein thing, which he has tried to avoid, and people are still talking about it because he's guilty. And because he's guilty, he's using this trip as a means of distraction.
I think you are right, and I wonder as well, people are talking so much about how Trump himself feels about the protests, or would hypothetically feel about a lack of protest. The people who are Trump supporters, do you think it plays into their hands to see his visit being protested?
Well, I think it does because he's their Messiah. They see him as the Prime Minister that they wish to have because of their own feelings about immigration, etc., etc. And the fact that he speaks their language, that it does. But then at the same time, we're not. Those of us who are protesting against him, we're not expecting any money out of it, or we're not expecting, for it to be paid for. But the fact that, American taxpayers are probably paying for this trip is quite...
They are. They're paying to the tune of 10 million, and several have been in touch to say how aggrieved they feel about that. Eve, thank you so much for your call. Just an interesting perspective on the earlier story that we were discussing regarding the Samaritans. I've had a text come in from a Samaritan volunteer, which I think is so pertinent and interesting. So this text says, I was a Samaritan volunteer for 4 years and have just stepped down as I've had a baby. I'm shocked at the prospect of volunteers taking calls from home. I've relied heavily upon my shift partner's support through extremely difficult calls.
Please mind
As a female volunteer, I also received multiple misuse of service calls on every shift, generally men seeking sexual gratification, and taking those calls from home in isolation would worry me. Part of the benefits of volunteering include the camaraderie amongst shift partners. It also keeps volunteers accountable, and I worry about the lack of oversight from home. Thank you so much. That you have articulated there everything that I was instinctively feeling when I read that story and it said there was a prospect of Samaritans volunteering from home. I thought, that seems unsafe and unfair fundamentally. And you, because of the experience that you have been able to demonstrate exactly why. So thank you so much for sending that text in. But just to reiterate that if you do need to talk to somebody, none of this should put you off from calling the Samaritans. They are available 24/7 on 116 123. Let's return now to Trump. Rachel has called from Newport in South Wales. What would you like to say?
Hi, I nearly called you the next day. It's Natasha. Sorry. Well, basically, I think people are sort of damned if they do and damned if they don't. Because my experience of watching Trump is that if nobody turned out or everyone turned their back on him or people turned out even to support him, whatever happens, in his head, like with his inauguration, he made out that the low crowd was the biggest crowd in the history of all inaugurations.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true.
He
seems to have this, I don't know, he's on a different planet.
A kind of inventing whatever reality he thinks will go down best with his base and feeds his ego. Yeah. So if he wanted to say that there were people protesting, he would just say it anyway, so why not just protest, I guess is the point that you're making.
Yeah, well, the thing is, in his head, his reality is completely
Please
different.
watch the speed.
You know, if he just doesn't live, you know, if he doesn't seem to, he has a problem with the truth, you know?
Yeah, I do know. Yeah, I absolutely do know. And the problem is that the examples of that become too innumerable for you to list. It's that flooding the zone thing where there are so many examples of things which were said and then it was denied that they were said, or things that were done and then you turned on, or things that you cannot believe were done. It's become just Trump has just become a symbol of so much that is happening in the world right now. And that, I think, explains some of the protests. I mean, if he was visiting Newport, would you protest?
Please mind the speed.
I think I'd stay at home and hide. In my younger years, I would. I've got a lot of illness going on now, so I probably wouldn't be able to get out and do it. But I'm no fan at all. I think there's too many people at the top today that have really strange agendas, apart from strange haircuts. But there's something really strange going on. It's not good, you know. And a lot of people don't read and analyse stuff. They're just like, oh, it was in the paper, it was on the news. They assume everything's true, and they I just find it all, you know, a lot of people are just really confused by it all, and I think that's done by design.
Well, it's a scary time to be alive, isn't it? There's a famous quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to because I can't remember, frankly, but there is a quote that says, the purpose of lying is not to make people believe the lie, it's to bring about a situation whereby people don't know what to believe, and so they end up believing in nothing. And then you don't have a unifying morality or ideology that unites people, and then people are easy to control.
Yeah, I think Joseph Goebbels said something similar to that, in that you tell people enough times and it's the truth and you end up believing
Please watch the speed.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for your call. It's strange that I just quoted Joseph Goebbels. I'm sure that I saw it attributed to somebody else, but that was via social media, and that just goes to exactly what Rachel was saying. So much of the information that we're getting is from different sources, conflicting sources. Trump has become an emblem of a lot of what people feel is the kind of unraveling of society, or everything that is wrong with modern politics and the modern world. And so I'm not surprised that people are taking to the streets to protest, whether or not it's wise in the grander scheme of things, insofar as it is costing the Scottish taxpayer money, and it might just be playing into his ego. I don't think we reached a satisfactory conclusion on that, but we may return to that on another day. Now, coming up in the final hour of the show after 8 p.m, an experiment in Germany has shown that, contrary to concerns of critics, universal basic income improves people's willingness to work, as well as having a positive impact on their mental health. I want to know if you think this is something we should implement. But first, you might have missed it because so many media outlets are apparently reporting every time Nigel Farage breathes. But Zara Sultana has announced on social media that her and Jeremy Corbyn's new party has 400,000 people who have signed up to be members. 309,000 members for Labour, 227 for Reform. They have crushed them. Left-wing populism is popular. What does this mean for the future of UK politics?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, hundreds of protesters have been demonstrating in response to Donald Trump's visit to Scotland. The US president's been playing golf on his course in Ayrshire with extensive security in place. He'll meet politicians including Sir Keir Starmer and John Swinney during his trip. Campaigner Anita Badani spoke to LBC. She was at the protest in Edinburgh.
We all have our various concerns about Trump and essentially just the way that he's ripping up the democratic rulebook. And I think what really united all of us today and what has united this coalition and ordinary people turning out is that we don't feel that Trump's hateful and divisive politics really represent what people in Scotland feel, and we just wanted to use our democratic right to protest to basically get that message out there.
The UK will work with Jordan to deliver aid using airdrops into Gaza. Children with severe medical need in the region could be brought to the UK for treatment. It's after today's emergency talks between Sir Keir Starmer and political leaders in France and Germany. Alexandra Sayat from Save the Children told LBC that aid drops aren't sufficient.
What we actually need to see is for the international community to press the Israeli government to lift the blockade and allow unfettered humanitarian access. These airdrops are absolutely not the solution. They are not going to be what brings malnourished children from the brink of starvation.
If you've had a medical appointment cancelled due to the current resident doctor strikes, you should be rescheduled within 2 weeks. NHS England are warning that the 5-day walkout over pay could impact patients. Hospitals are trying to minimise disruption. A £20,000 reward's been offered in exchange for information about a fatal stabbing in East London. It's a year since 20-year-old Imran Maruf died in Plashett Park in Newham. A toy of the comic and film character The Hulk has sold for nearly £4,000. The figure was described as one of the rarest stretch toys in existence. The sale set a UK auction record for a figure of its kind. LBC weather: showers should ease, leaving a mostly dry night, some foggy patches. Tomorrow we'll see a mixture of sunshine and showers and a high of 21 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Sinead Cowan.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Natasha Devon.
It's coming up to 3 minutes after 7. Okay, I'm really excited about this next conversation that we're going to have. I think it's going to be a really good one. You may have missed this because I was frantically searching before I came to air, and not much of the media has covered it, presumably because they're too busy covering every time Nigel Farage breathes. But Zara Sultana has announced via her social media channels that her new party, which has temporarily been named Your Party, it's yet to be named, but she's co-leading it with Jeremy Corbyn, of course, has surpassed 400,000 people who have signed up wanting to be members. I don't think that there is an official membership scheme yet, but they've had 400,000 emails from people who have expressed that they would wish to be members. That's they're saying, Jeremy Corbyn has said, about 500 people per minute. I mean, it's an extraordinary number of people in a really, really short space of time. It got 300,000 in its first 48 hours of being open. So this far exceeds Reform, which has 227,000, and the current leader for membership, which is Labour, on 309,000. Conservatives have 123,000, just in case you wanted or needed that information. And I mention Reform just because not one newspaper has covered this extraordinary response. To have 400,000 people show interest in this is absolutely extraordinary. And I think it would be incredibly disingenuous to suggest that if Farage said we're getting 500 emails a minute with people expressing interest in the Reform Party, that would not be on the front page of the website, at least, of every newspaper. That wouldn't be seen as major news. And I'm saying this not just based on my personal feelings. You only have to look at the fact that Zara Sultana, despite her prominence and popularity, has never appeared on Question Time. Corbyn has only appeared on Question Time 5 times. 3 of those were leadership debates in the run-up to the 2019. Farage has appeared 38 times on this country's flagship political
and then
show.
Turn right.
That's just one example of the disproportionate attention that is given to the populist right. But now we have a populist left, which is seeing, whether you like it or not, this huge wave of initial support. And I think that that is newsworthy. I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just think it's newsworthy, and I think that you and I should talk about it. Neither, by the way, just while we're on this, and I'm having a little bit of a rant, there was a recent by-election. It took place in Sefton Park in Liverpool earlier this month. The Greens trounced every other party. They got 49% of the vote. Labour came second with 22%, then the Lib Dems, then Reform. We didn't hear anything about that. It's almost like there's an agenda to try and make everyone believe that Reform is more popular than it is. But one thing is clear, and that is that populism is popular. I guess it's there in the name, whether it's on the left or on the right. And I'm essentially asking you how that makes you feel. Does that make you feel excited, or does that make you feel terrified? What does this mean for the future of UK politics? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. You can text 84850 or send me a comment via your Alexa. There's really interesting newsagents episode, which is, again, from earlier in the month. It was published on the 14th of July. Luke Trill was on it from the polling company More in Common. They've done this huge piece of research. And what they've found is that 87% of people, so almost 9 in 10 people, have little or no trust in politicians as a whole. That's extraordinary. I mean, it's not extraordinary when you consider everything.